Let's get into some technical analysis now on what traders are watching this week. Tony Sycamore from IG joining me on set. Nasdaq having a pretty good run overnight, up by about 0.5%. I think we saw some more good gains from Tesla and Nvidia a little bit lower, but what are the technicals showing you?
Well, the technicals have taken the rally, which really started from mid-March, to a pretty important level. We are now testing the 200-day moving average, which is that orange line you can see on the chart, after gapping higher at the start of this week and getting back above that trend line, which is the black line. That goes all the way back until December 2022. So at this point of time, we need to see how the Nasdaq reacts with regards to this 200-day moving average. But what we can say is, really since that mid-March low, and that mid-March low coincided with Trump threatening tariffs of 200% on the EU and 50% tariffs on Canada, there's been a notable shift in his rhetoric with regards to tariffs, and there has been a dovish shift, in my opinion. Now, whether that continues into next week's April the 2nd Liberation Day, we will soon see. But if it is certainly a result of maybe the stock market making him sort of sit up and notice a little bit more that perhaps we shouldn't be going this haphazard, frantic type of style, which he's been doing really since that high we can see there. And maybe it's a reaction to somebody saying, hey, listen, we can still raise revenues and bring production back on shore, but we don't have to send the US economy into a recession while we're trying to do that. So for me, it's going to be really, really important as to what happens next week. As long as we see more targeted, more selective tariffs, I think that'll be fine. I think the Nasdaq can extend its rally, potentially another 300 or 400 points higher. But if for whatever reasons we see a shift back to that hawkish, frantic, we're going to put tariffs on everybody rhetoric, which we have seen, then the Nasdaq really will be in a very vulnerable position and retest those lows.
But there is a school of thought that maybe he's going to pull back from this threat of a global all-out trade war, and that is actually seeing a lot of analysts say that Bitcoin could be having an incredible opportunity here.
Well, Bitcoin is at the pointy end of the risk spectrum, as we say, and because it's sitting, because it sits in that complex, it's done reasonably well since those March lows as well. And the way I look at Bitcoin, Jules, is this whole correction or this price action from the 109,000 high has been a correction. Now, in recent days, it's got back above the 200-day moving average, which is a ticker box moment, if you like, in terms of defining the pullback as a correction. The final pieces of confirmation I'm waiting for would be a move above that trend channel resistance you can see there. That sits around 90,000. And then we've got some highs in early March around 95,000. So at this point of time, I'm really encouraged by what I'm seeing to confirm the idea that we have seen a corrective pullback and potentially it's finished. But we're just waiting for some final pieces of information that move above 90,000 and then above 95,000, which I think would confirm once and for all that the pullback has been a correction and the uptrend is set to resume.
Well, what are we seeing with oil? Because potentially seeing a little bit of resistance when you look at the WTI contract.
Yes, look, it's been for me, it's based again in those mid-60s. It's been there a number of times, you can see on the chart there, and we were looking, that comes from weekly, monthly support. It is very, very solid down there, and it's held, it's bouncing out of there, being supported by the idea there will be 25% tariffs on anyone that takes Venezuelan crude or gas. And I think what we can see here is just to see crude oil get back towards that yellow line again, the 200-day moving average sitting around 72.50. So not calling this the start of a bull market or anything outlandish like that. I'm just thinking that we've probably confirmed the bottom of the range down there in the 60s, mid-60s, and potentially we can head back up towards that $72 to $73 area.
All right, we've got CPI coming through in about 15 minutes' time. Where's the Aussie sitting?
The Aussie sits just above 63 cents, and it's probably a little bit vulnerable in terms of a soft inflation number, because what you can see here is the Aussie has been trading higher, really a correction to that big downtrend we saw from that 69.42 high. But that trend line support comes in around 62.50 to 62.30. And while it holds above there, I think you need to allow the correction to play out. Potentially could get up to 65 cents. Which is the top of the trend channel and the 200-day moving average. But as I said, if we got a shock surprise inflation number and it hastened, potentially opened up the idea of more aggressive RBA rate cuts, that would probably be the catalyst for the Aussie to take another leg lower through that trend line support and revisit that 60.87 low. But at this point of time, it's not our base case. We just want this correction to continue as it has been, chopping up towards that 65 cent area.
Now we had the budget overnight. The market not really reacting to that. It is more about what we saw on Wall Street. But what are the technicals showing you with where the ASX is?
Very similar to the Nasdaq in some respects. You know, the rally that we've seen has been really in light of that shift in tariff rhetoric we saw there in mid-March from the US administration. This morning it's popped above 8,000. What we do need to be mindful of here right now is that April 2nd is obviously a very pivotal moment, but in the interim, we have month-end rebalancing and we have quarter-end rebalancing. And I will, as a rule, generally be looking for the Australian equity market to be supported into those end of month and end of quarter sign-off periods, just because it's generally the way things play out with regards to the world we live in at this point of time. We want to see the month-end finish higher. We want to see the quarter-end finish as high as we possibly can. And I think that will probably keep the ASX 200 supported, looking for a pop up towards 80.50, up towards 8100.